listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM and 1340 AM, Hopewell, Virginia.
Hey, welcome to the All Burgundy and Gold, everything post-game report. I'm Glen Thomas. Mo, Ray, and Wole are out. I'm here with some capable Washington Commanders reporters, George Templeton and Kelsey Nicole Nelson, to join me this afternoon to talk about this Washington Commanders 17-16 comeback win over the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. A great homecoming for Terry McLaurin. I'm always a gentleman, so I'm going to start with the ladies first. Kelsey, welcome to the Burgundy and Gold, All Burgundy and Gold post-game show. Your thoughts on this win by the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, well, thanks again so much for having me on. And let's just do the because that ending scared everybody, right? We had to see if the Washington Commanders could be the comeback kids. And once again, they were. And I think it was really great to see Taylor Heinicke have another win, another notch on his belt, because we know everyone had questions about Taylor Heinicke. He's coming into the big leagues once again. Could he fill the shoes of being the quarterback that Washington needs right now? And I think he did that. I think about that Geno Smith quote when I think about Taylor Heinicke. They wrote me off, but I didn't write back. 2 wins now for Taylor Heinicke. He beat the Green Bay Packers last week with this Washington team, and many people thought they weren't. And then the Colts were favored this game. And once again, Washington gets the win. I think the best part about it is the Indy kid, Terry McLaurin, having a big game in Indianapolis, and I think for him it was huge. But I think this game was really special for Washington because, one, on the offensive side of the ball was spread around well. We saw so many guys step up. It was so nice to see Cam Sims have a huge catch towards the end of the game for Washington to get that win. Curtis Samuel and what he was able to do. Again, Terry McLaurin and what he's been able to do for this Washington team in this game. So all of that to say, Washington playing good football. Washington starting off running the ball, which is something I know that fans have been calling for this Washington offense to do. But all around, a great team win. 3 wins in a row, back at the 500 level. And looking at the ending of this Giants and Seattle game, this was a big win for Washington to once again stay competitive in the NFC East that we know is obviously really competitive this year, with Dallas getting the big win today over the Chicago Bears. A game not as competitive probably as many fans wanted, but I think this keeps Washington in the race. So once again, it makes Washington fans feel like, all right, we know we've been going through this quarterback carousel for a while, but right now Taylor Heinicke is the guy that we have, and he's doing enough to get the wins, and that's all Washington fans want. So it's super exciting, and I think we're excited to have Washington back here on Sunday at home against the Vikings. I think we feel that much more confident going into that game.
George, your thoughts on this Washington Commanders team? Kelsey talked about Taylor Heinicke spreading the ball around, right? We know that the Taylor Heinicke talk will increase this week, right? We know that the Taylor Heinicke being a winner will increase this week. Your thoughts before we get more into Taylor Heinicke, because it was a decent performance, not a great performance by Taylor Heinicke.
I think that's right. I think Taylor Heinicke's problem, I think there were stretches of the game where I thought the coaching staff put him in great position. And then there were stretches of the game where the play calling was just hard to understand. And it's funny because it's like when they got down 9-7, I wrote down in the little scratch pad that I took with me to the bar as I was trying to watch this game because it was not on locally in North Carolina. I said, will the offense respond? And then Heinicke throws that absolutely awful interception that was coming because he had 2 other near interceptions right before that. And fair play to him for finding a way to get him down the field at the end, 90 yards. And Terry McLaurin makes another winning play because that's what Terry McLaurin is. But let's just understand what's happened here. They beat a team with a 7th round draft pick, and they only barely beat them. And they did everything they could to try to lose that game. And Indianapolis themselves, 2 red zone turnovers, which is something that you got to keep in mind. So that when they go and get that touchdown with Nyheim Hines, it probably should have been over then. It wasn't because of the turnovers. And look, the legend's going to grow for some people. Their next 2 games are against one's team 6-1, even if it's a very soft 6-1, Minnesota's 6-1 or whatever it is. And then Philadelphia. Let's see if this dog will hunt the next 2 games, because I'm not too convinced it will. But hey, he found a way to make some plays at the end, and when they did the right things for him, he produced. But man, the coaching staff did not do the right things a lot of the time, and that's certainly contributed to a lot of the problems they had today.
Yeah, it definitely contributed to a lot of the issues that they had today. One thing we talk about Taylor Heinicke, 23 for 23 for 31, 296 yards. Receiving, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Spread the ball to 8 different receivers today, with Terry McLaurin being that guy. It seemed like we have seen a resurgence of Terry McLaurin since Taylor Heineke has been at the quarterback position. He feels comfortable with him. He feels relaxing by it. And Terry McLaurin, even on that last catch, made Taylor Heineke look good. If you watch the move, Terry McLaurin put on Stephon Gilmore, who is a Pro Bowler, his future Hall of Famer. Terry McLaurin gave Taylor Heineke 2 weeks in a row. If you think about go back last week, the catch for Green Bay, 2 weeks in a row, Terry McLaurin has bailed Terry McLaurin has bailed Tyler Heineke out. Kelsey, talk about the relationship between Taylor Heineke and Terry McLaurin.
Can we just go back to that ball, Glen, though? The way that Terry McLaurin snatched that ball from Gilmore, who you said is one of the best to do it. I think that was huge. I mean, that was huge. That was the game, literally right there. And it was a good ball by Taylor Heineke. But again, Terry McLaurin had to fight for that because he's playing against one of the top defenders. But again, I said when Taylor Heineke became the starter, I was asked this question on multiple shows. And as you said, I do think there is a comfortability right now with Terry McLaurin and Taylor Heineke. And when we talk about Carson Wentz, for one, Carson Wentz was scared as hell a lot in that pocket because of the offensive line and about how many times he's got sacked. Somebody that knows about being sacked is Matt Ryan on the other end of the ball. And that's why he was on the sidelines, right? Because his sacking also led to some of the fumbling issues that the Colts have had. So I think you have Carson Wentz in the pocket, again, not fully comfortable. And I think that's why he wasn't able to do what we wanted Carson Wentz to do in that pocket. But you get Taylor Heineke, who has familiarity, right, with this offense and their receivers. And I think also the receivers have offensive familiarity with him. And I think that's why we saw some of these great connections. And also the great thing about Taylor Heineke isn't that he just is able to get it to Terry McLaurin. Is that he's not afraid to be mobile and use his legs, right? He will fight for that yardage. On that last drive, remember that ball that Taylor Heineke had to run and he got the first down? That was huge. And I think this is why we like Taylor Heineke. Is he the greatest quarterback in the league? Definitely not. But he's right now what Washington needs to at least get the job done. Now, you hate to see these close wins, but a win is a win at the end of the day, and all these are going to count towards Washington's record. And I think the biggest thing right now is Taylor Heineke shows his heart. Terry McLaurin, that might be the most passionate I've seen him this entire season after that win. I felt like he was wearing like his heart on his sleeve, not only because it's his hometown, but because, as we all know, in Washington, he's been a disrespected wide receiver, not talked about enough as a top wide receiver in the National Football League. Now, Washington gave him that nice extension and paid him pretty well, I think, showing that they believe in him. But once again, I think feeling like he hasn't had the respect due to him. I think this was a big win for him. I think for Taylor Heineke, too, the wide receivers know that, he does want to get them the ball. He is a guy that's looking to make plays. And you never know when your name is going to be called up and be the next man up. Again, I talked about Cam Sims having that big play. That was huge. Again, Curtis Samuels. I mean, it's just so great to see him get in a comfortable groove. Antonio Gibson. I mean, everybody's name on offense, I feel like their number was called and they stepped up when need be. Now, that interception throw that was talked about, that was ill-advised. And that's something that scares me every time about Taylor Heineke. He's always trying to be the hero. And sometimes being a hero can get you in trouble, right? Because you're trying to make those magnificent plays. And obviously Washington, very lucky that the Colts had their own mishaps. We know that fumble that Jonathan Taylor had, that was huge. And then that touchdown that was called back on the Colts. And thank gosh, Jamin Davis was able to come back and stop that next play, because otherwise we'd be having a completely different conversation, right, on the show right now, had those plays not been made. But again, all that to say, I think Taylor Heineke continuing to get in a groove. We know he's been working on his arm strength. And I think, we're starting to see that more. Again, he's not the greatest deep ball guy, but he's made the plays that need to be made. And the receivers, I think, are reciprocating the love for him. And so I think going on, Washington has a good, solid offense with them. But the biggest thing is going to be the offensive line. And I think the protection that's provided to Taylor Heineke. Multiple times throughout the broadcast, the broadcasters talk about, how this is the seventh iteration of this offensive line, right? All these different changes and guys and names. Taylor Heineke is going to have to feel comfortable having that protection to make the big plays that he's going to need to make if Washington is going to be winning here on out and getting wins to stay competitive within the NFC East. That continues to look good. Philadelphia having a big game today, looking really great on both sides of the football. So all that to say, Taylor Heineke is going to have to get the job done. But luckily for Washington, the defense has been playing pretty well as well to keep Washington's offense, I think, in a lot of these close games.
Definitely. Before we go any further, George, those of you who are watching us on YouTube, Twitter, as well as Facebook. If you want to join the conversation, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Also, if you're not, you can go subscribe to our IG page at ABG_everything. That's everything with 3 R's. Also, go to ABG_everything on Twitter, and you can go Burgundy and Gold everything on Facebook as well to leave a comment. And let's talk about this Washington win. I want to talk about, Kelsey brought it up, how great this defense has played, right? In this winning streak for the Washington Commanders. If you go back to the Bears game, the defense was able to stop Justin Fields late. Go back to last week, the defense was able to stop Aaron Rodgers, right? Late. Now the defense today caused 2 critical turnovers, right? 2 critical turnovers as Indianapolis was scoring. And we see better play by this defense, the front 4, because the secondary today still has troubles and still has some struggles. I'm going to talk about the front 4. We can even talk about the front 6, right, of the Washington Commanders. George, talk about the Washington defense and how important they have been to this winning streak. It's not just the offense, but it's the defense keeping them in games to win late.
Well, again, I do think the defense's performance is a tad overrated, but I will say this. In the red zone, they've been stopping people. Some of it's been luck, but some of it's been great plays. I mean, look, Jamin Davis, gets cooked by Nyheim Hines on that wheel route, and you're thinking, oh God, why is he even there? I mean, it's just one of those things that's frustrating. And then he turns around and just absolutely stones them on the goal line, and they're kicking the field goal for 9-7 instead of going in for a touchdown. And by the way, kudos to the refs for actually overturning that, because I wasn't sure, and I thought they weren't going to do it, and they did, and that's to their credit. So, I mean, whatever Jack Del Rio's dialing up in the red zone, it is working. I just and that's where you got to give them a lot of credit. This front 4's is Jonathan Allen was huge today. They have a drive going. He stuffs Taylor in the backfield, gets him behind the sticks. Then he forces a fumble. Payne recovers it. I still think they need Chase Young to get the kind of consistent pass rush they need, but they've been doing all right. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things about this defense to look at. I'll be honest. I thought it would go worse without Cole Holcomb. They definitely need Cole Holcomb back. But all in all, I mean, when you bend but don't break. I've never liked bend but don't break defenses, but somehow, some way, that's what this team seems to do.
This seems it did do that. One thing that was crucial here, even when Washington did cause the turnovers, the offense did not capitalize off the turnovers. And that was one of the issues that I thought about was big. Scott Turner, if you go back to the first turnover after they have Sam Ehlinger fumbles, he has a 3rd and 1, right? It's a 3rd and 1. And he throws the freaking football. And that was right before the half, and that's why I remember that, and I wrote it down in my notes. Like, this will come back and maybe haunt the Washington Commanders, because it's 3rd and 1. You're on the 40, maybe 50-yard line. It's close that 45 seconds left. You pick up the first down. You have opportunity to get in field goal position. You have opportunity to now have to score 10-6. Going in there, he throws the ball, incomplete pass to J.D. McKissick, couldn't catch the ball. And that one thing, too, Heineke has not been able to set his feet. I don't know whether it was the turf or whatever. His throwing movement or positioning has caused him to throw things short or a little bit wide, and where receivers that were open have to reach out and go get the ball. Kelsey mentioned Terry McLaurin taking the ball from Stephon Gilmore, and that's what big-time players do, right? That's what big-time players do. They take football just as much as the offensive ball as the defensive guy player ball as well. I want to talk about, we talk about this defense. The defense only gave up like 300 and some yards today to Sam Ehlinger. Kelsey, you talked about Cam Sims. It came in big, which means in the fourth quarter, they kind of trust him a little bit. Big receiver, 6'2", 230-some pounds, was able to trust him. But I think the most important thing was Taylor Heineke's feet today, because we mentioned the offensive line is still not good. His feet and his mobility has helped him to in plays. And I remember somebody, I'm not going to brag or talk about and pat myself on the back, but go listen to the podcast this week. I mentioned that him be able to move and guys being able to get the scramble drill, as you call it, and guys being able to scramble and find a hole, it was going to help him excel this week. So,
Glenn, can I pick up on your point and ask Kelsey this? Because this was frustrating me. I was watching the Colts do RPOs with Sam Ehlinger. Again, 7th round pick who's never played, never thrown a pass in the NFL until today. And I guess on the touchdown run, that was an RPO at the end. But why won't they do that with Taylor Heineke? Because when early in the game, his only success was he was getting outside the pocket, running, making throws, and that's where he was getting his success from. But I also wanted to comment on this because I want to give the coaching staff a little bit of credit. I thought they used Gibson and Samuel great today, and that made a huge difference in the game.
Yes. And I think that's what we've been asking for. And let's remember, this is a week that we're coming off of where there have been trade rumors, right, that we've been talking about with Antonio Gibson. But I think, Washington showed today that he is valuable to this team. And I think Washington fans have known this. Look at what he did last season. Look how valuable he's been this season. And, just going back to the mobile quarterback part, we're living in a mobile quarterback world. There's a reason why Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. He can throw and he can move in the pocket. Lamar Jackson right next door in Baltimore. Why do people love him? Because he's mobile. Justin Fields, even though the Bears lost today, why is Justin Fields? Why can he be special? When his offensive line protects him, he's also a quarterback that can be mobile. Notice I said when his offensive line protects him. All right, but all that to say, again, Taylor Heineke, the reason why there's faith in Taylor Heineke is because we know he will do that. That's probably one of the biggest criticisms on Carson Wentz. You knew running was the last option, right, for Carson Wentz. He wanted to stay in that pocket as long as he could, and that's one of the bad things we would say about Carson Wentz, right? Holding on to that ball too long, letting the pressure get to you again when you have a questionable offensive line. But you said it, Taylor Heineke has to set his feet. There's some of those balls that he threw, I'm like, just not enough air in them. I think the receivers know, again, you're going to sometimes have to work to get that ball that Taylor Heineke throws. But all that to say, again, I think he's a young guy developing. I think, again, he is what Washington needs right now. Going back to your point, Scott Turner, there has been questions about the offense and the offensive plays that are run. And I think we can be a lot more creative in Washington because let's just be honest, this was a great win, but also it was a 1-point win to a backup quarterback that had his first career start. I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer here, right? But again, Sam Ehlinger, for a little bit, we made Sam Ehlinger look pretty good. He had some good plays this game. He's going to have some nice highlight tape after this Washington game. And not that he's a bad quarterback, but I'm saying he's young. He's inexperienced. But today, Washington was able to give him some plays. And let's be honest, if Michael Pittman caught that ball at the end, a ball that he should have caught. Again, this could be a completely different conversation that we're having. For me, if I'm Sam Ehlinger, I'm looking at Michael Pittman in the locker room, just giving him maybe a dirty eye because he was this close maybe to possibly, getting his first career win. Because again, that was a ball, should have been catch. He beat the coverage. The ball was right on the money. But on the other end of things, Taylor Heineke, you talked about it, almost 300 yards or Taylor Heineke. I'll take that. I will take that. Let's remember, this was a quarterback, Carson Wentz, against the Bears that had 99 yards at the end of that game. Then we go to Taylor Heineke last week in Green Bay and obviously having a better game than that. But for Taylor Heineke, he's doing what needs to be done. And I think when the plays aren't there, he's fighting for that first down yardage. Sometimes he fights a little bit too hard. Sometimes like Taylor, protect yourself because if you get hurt, again, looking at Washington, you already have Carson Wentz hurt. Taylor Heineke is the guy that you're hoping will stay there until Carson Wentz is eligible to come back. And even when he's eligible to come back, there will be questions around that. But I think, again, the Washington offense, they have on paper all the guys they need, but it's up to Scott Turner, I think, and companies to make this offense a little bit less predictable, do more. When they're running the ball, they run it well. That's what beat Green Bay last week. I think, they kind of got away from the run towards the end of the football game, but starting off, again, you have Gibson, you have McKissick, you have Robinson, you have a great trio in these guys, and you have dual threats in these guys, right? Gibson, again, we talk about it all the time, Swiss Army knife, something so nice to use. Curtis Samuel, if you're the other position, somebody else, Swiss Army knife, someone so nice to use. So getting these guys in more reflective plays, so you keep defenses guessing. You don't know what Taylor Heineke's going to do. You don't know who he's going to throw to. And especially against the Vikings next week, that's going to be very valuable because I think, again, they're going to play tougher competition in the Vikings. I'm not fully sold on the Vikings, but I think this will be probably Taylor Heineke's first real test of his now starting career in Washington this season.
You talked about J.D. McKissick. You talked about Curtis Samuel. You talked about even Brian Robinson Jr. a little bit. With all that being said, and I always say this every week, George, you agree with me, 23 carries, 96 yards. The Washington Commanders had 7 guys carry the football and still couldn't amount 100 yards of total offense, right? Rushing, 100 yards rushing. There's a problem with the running game in Washington, right? With the offensive line or whatever case may be, He has to commit. There's a point in time when you have to commit to the run. When your leading rusher is your quarterback, and that's because he's running for his life, there's a problem, right? There is a problem there. And the Washington organization needs to address this. And I understand it's the offensive line. They beat up, they're hurt, centers out, different people are out, right? But they have to be able to, if you want to be a winning team in the NFL or in the league, you have to be able to run the football. And they have to be able to go run the football and play. Taylor Heinicke cannot throw 31 times for this Washington team to continue to build success and continue to win. You have to be able to run the ball, and that's what something that's still. If there's something that I need to take away from this game that the Washington offense needs to work on, is running the football. Yes, you got Antonio Gibson, who has 7 catches for 56 yards, and he had 19 yards rushing. But again, there has to be somebody to run the football. Also, that being said, Scott Turner, again, play calling is essential here. He's making this guy safe. We talked about RPOs, George. You have to understand offense around RPOs, right? You got to understand what linebacker to check off on. Where if the linebacker down in the box, if the DN drops down or the DN drops out, has the safety came down over top and going over top. So so you have to understand that that's not in his RPOs with Taylor Heinicke's not there yet. It's something they probably could put in later on in a couple of weeks. Kelsey, you mentioned as well. I'm going to ask both of you guys, is there a quarterback controversy in Washington now, or is there one brewing? Carson Wentz will be back in a couple of weeks. Is there a quarterback controversy in Washington?
Not for me, because I don't want to see Carson Wentz throw another pass for the Washington Commanders. I don't really want to see Heinicke throw too many more either, but he's winning right now, so he's going to stay in there. But seriously, Carson Wentz, you've seen enough of Carson Wentz. There can't be anybody, because and the McLaurin thing is the key. Whether McLaurin's bailing Heinicke out or not, Carson Wentz couldn't throw Terry McLaurin the football. Sometimes it took him 3 quarters before he would do it. We had games this year where Terry McLaurin had 1 target going into the 4th quarter. That's ludicrous. He's our $22 million franchise wide receiver, and Carson Wentz can't give him the football, but popgun arm Taylor Heinicke can. No, I've had enough of Carson Wentz. I can't, and really, not just because of the draft pick thing. Again, he's going to make $26 million next year. No. There's no controversy for me. The only controversy is if we don't play well these next 2 games against tougher competition, and we're 4-6, and at that point we probably are going to be out of it. Are we going to do the sensible thing and give Sam Howell a look, or are we going to continue on with Taylor Heinicke? Because here's the other thing. 3-game winning streak is great. 12 points against the Bears, 23 against the Packers, 17 against the Colts today. Those ain't going to cut it against Minnesota. That soft as they are, they score a lot of points. And Philadelphia, they score a lot of points. You can't beat either of those teams scoring whatever the average is, which is, let's see, 23, 12, and 17 is 52 in 3 games. So that's, almost 18 points a game. 18 points ain't going to cut it the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. I think for me, should there be a quarterback? I think the question is, should there be a quarterback controversy? No. But I'm going to take you guys back to the end of that Chicago Bears game and that press conference when a very spirited Ron Rivera talked on podium saying, I was the guy that brought Carson Wentz here. I was the one. Not Dan Snyder, not anybody else, me. I've always believed in him. There was no rumors about me not wanting him. And I brought that up to say, if he put his back on the line, and again, this clip is everywhere, folks, when Ron Rivera was very spirited about Carson Wentz being the guy, I think there is going to be a question when Carson Wentz comes back. Now, again, should there be? No. If Taylor Heinicke is playing well, it's the same thing that we were talking about, right, in Dallas when Dak Prescott was out. And, Dallas had that quarterback controversy, but lo and behold, Cooper Rush had a bad game. What happened? Dak Prescott was right back in the saddle. So I think overall, if Taylor Heinicke continues to play good football, there should not be. And right now, I do think Taylor Heinicke gives Washington the best chance. But once again, I think coach is going to have to eat his words, though, if Taylor Heinicke continues to be that guy, since he is the one that said that he believed in Carson, that Carson was the one for Washington. So if I'm Carson Wentz and my coach went on national television, and left a press conference trying to defend me, I would have questions about when I come back if I am the guy, because on the other end of the spectrum, again, the Colts are a perfect case study to show, Matt Ryan was simply told, you're no longer the guy in Indianapolis. no longer, right? And he's going to be on the sidelines now for the rest of the remainder of the year in Indianapolis. Now, Carson Wentz hasn't been told that, but Carson Wentz hasn't probably been doing the job that folks have wanted. Taylor, again, is the guy. We still have a small sample size, right? A couple games into, and I still want to see how he does against the Minnesota Vikings, but I don't think there should be. Again, I think Taylor is the one that's going to fight for his life on that football field, right? For that yardage, because Taylor is a guy he knows what it is to be an underdog, right? He knows what it is to be doubted against, and I think he leaves everything on that football field. But all that to say, I think if Taylor is the guy, again, Ron Rivera is going to have to tell somehow, some way, try to eat up some of his words and show that, this is based on quarterback play. And right now, Taylor is playing the better of the quarterbacks right now and gives Washington the best chance to hopefully get further this football season. So sorry, Carson Wentz, but, he's been there before, because he's had the up and down years as a quarterback. Of course, we know what Carson Wentz can be when he's at his best, but at his best isn't what we've seen so far in Washington. And this is a productivity level game. This is a next man up type of game. And it's what have you done lately type of league. And right now, Taylor Heineke is the one that is getting Washington the wins and keeping them in the win column. And again, keeping them competitive in this race so far.
Let's go with Brian's question here. Brian Statton. He said, if they can upset the Vikings, people will really start believing they're getting legit. George, I'm going to ask you, if they upset the Vikings, is this team starting to get legit?
Then I mean, they're over 500 then they really are a playoff contender. I mean, again, it's hard for me to buy this team is legit given the landscape of the NFC East and the NFC, but in terms of making the playoffs, if they upset the Vikings, they would be more in that direction, because I think that would take their NFC record to 3-3. So at least their tiebreaker situation, which looked really dire at 1-4, would start looking a whole lot better, because I think that would be a third. I think that'd be a third NFC win, if I'm not mistaken, after a bad start. So yeah, if they upset the Vikings and they can slow that roll at home, then we can perhaps start having a different conversation. Having said all that, I'll repeat what I've said before. The Vikings might be 6-1. They are one of the softest 6-1 teams I've ever seen in my life, because they have let everybody hang around. Bears, Cardinals, good teams, bad teams. It had made a difference. That said, unfortunately, we're going to have to score probably 28 to win that game, and I'm not sure that this offense is capable of that.
Kelsey, same question for you. If they somehow can upset the Vikings next week, will people start believing that this Commanders team is legit?
I think it depends who you ask that question. I think maybe the fans will start to believe that this Commanders fan is legit. But let's just be honest right now. The Commanders have a lot surrounding them. There's a lot of disbelief in this team. There's questions about the coaching ranks and if this is the right coaching regimen for this team to move forward. There's questions about the ownership of this team. And then there's questions about the play of this football team. Now, I think if they beat the Vikings, yes, and we'll get more people to say, all right, the Commanders, they might be okay. They might just be enough. But let's also look at the NFC East. So, I mean, for the Giants, I think the Giants' signature win was against the Baltimore Ravens, right? I think people weren't taking the New York Football Giants seriously until they beat a Baltimore Ravens team that, is pretty decent, but also a Baltimore Ravens team that has been known to blow big leads in the fourth quarter this season, right? So, I mean, there's questions around that, but that's when people started to say, okay, maybe we do have to start believing in what the Giants are selling. And so I think for the Vikings, again, I think this would be a good win for Washington. Maybe it also will matter how much Washington wins by. Let's just be honest. Washington has been escaping with wins. So I think if they're able to beat the Vikings with a solid win, let's say at least 10-point win, I think that would be nice, so fans can actually relax towards the end of games. But again, I don't think that will have everybody sold on Washington when you have the Philadelphia Eagles, if you watch the Eagles game today, and again, I know they're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who aren't the Pittsburgh Steelers as of late, but the Philadelphia Eagles look really good. The Dallas Cowboys, obviously, on both sides of the football. Could they be better? Yes, but the Dallas Cowboys are, again, a good team. And then the New York Giants, again, are a decent football team. So I think when you have that level of expectation, I think the Commanders still will have some work to do for national-wise for people to say this is a good football team that we can believe in and a football team that we think can actually do something maybe come the postseason. So again, Vikings won't be good, but I don't think everyone will be sold on that, Glenn, but it probably will help season ticket holders come back to games and maybe us having some decent fan attendance again at games, and not so many away fans being at the games making us look disrespected on national television.
Definitely. You know, Wayne Nightpipe told us just enjoy the dub. I think as reporters and journalists, we do enjoy the W. We do enjoy the W.
I put Burgundy on for the win, Glenn. We enjoy it.
We enjoy it. Selected them this week. But again, we do enjoy the W, but as a journalist, you realize there's still some holes in the ship. There's still some issues that this team has to work on in order to become one of those elite teams. As you mentioned, the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Right now, you're chasing the Philadelphia Eagles. You're chasing the Dallas Cowboys, teams whom you lost to. They had lost to earlier in the season. They want to be what George was talking about to get back in this playoff hunt. They're going to have to beat some of these elite teams like the Minnesota Vikings and like the Philadelphia Eagles and like the Cowboys. So they might be moving in the right direction and do enjoy the win, but you have to look at the bigger picture. There's some issues with this team. The secondary today still gave up some key balls, right? The secondary today gave up some big chunk yards. It didn't make Sam Elliott drive down the football field and methodically drive down the field. Now, the defensive front four did hold Jonathan Taylor to 78 yards today.
It
was a win.
But also, Glenn, let's remember Jonathan Taylor was coming off an injury prior. His ankle was hurting during the game, right? So, I mean, yes, they held him, but also he's not 100%, and also he's not having the same productivity as he had last season. So a win, and then also, as you said, with the secondary and the defense, I keep remembering that Kendall Fuller call that did not get called. Washington to escape with that, because I was very surprised
good point.
in Indy that did not get called, that pass interference.
Right, and that's Warley's boy, Kendall Fuller. He's good for one every week, right? He's good for something. We can't get away from this show. There's two names that we bring every week on everything, and that's Scott Turner and that's Kendall Fuller. Those names come up each and every week on different sides of the ball for something that they did or done on this show. We talked about earlier as we get ready to wrap this up. It was a game of inches, right? Sam Elliott, if his knee doesn't go down and get touched by Deron Payne, that is a first down, and we may not even be having this discussion of the Washington Commanders coming back and win, because that caused a 4th and 1 on like the 29 or 30-yard line, which made Indianapolis punt the ball off back to Washington. Those type of things are making a big difference for this team to win football games. Is some of the plays or mistakes from other teams that help the Washington Commanders move. But let's do this. Give me before we leave out of here, Kelsey and George. We start with you, George. Give me something positive, that a good positive takeaway and a negative takeaway that you saw in this game.
A good positive takeaway. I love the way Curtis Samuel was used today. Running game, passing game. I thought that if we've been bagging on Scott Turner a lot, I thought he was clever with some of the plays he used Curtis Samuel in. Curtis Samuel's been a revelation this year for a guy that barely played last year to come out of here and has done what he's done. And certainly without Jahan Dotson, we absolutely have to have him. Please put him in bubble wrap during the week, because we can't lose him, especially with Dotson not out there. So that's the big positive. The big negative, golly Moses, the secondary got cooked again, and now you're getting cooked by with a quarterback was a 7th round pick throwing deep balls on you. And it was St-Juste and Fuller. And it's just like, man, and Justin Jefferson's coming next week. That is, I'd just rather not think about what that guy could do to us.
Yep. Kelsey, positive, negative.
Oh my gosh. Well, I may have two negatives, but one of them's kind of funny. One negative, Casey Tuhill. Love what you did recovering that fumble, but if you're going to do the gritty, you got to do it right. Don't ever embarrass us to get on national television doing a sloppy gritty like that. So all the Washington players listening to the show, please help our guy out. All right. We got to get that right, especially since you mentioned who's coming to town next week. But also, it was really good to see him play. I guess I'll start with my main negative, though, is that, again, I think when you look at this defense, you look at someone like Paris Campbell, who had a really good game, Hines, Pierce. Really, the Colts overall, the offense, I mean, it started to move. As you said, they had some of their own mishaps and mistakes. But overall, I think just the negatives, you hate to see guys get big numbers in Indianapolis and the game come that close. But on a positive, again, I think the confidence that this team has, I think that's something to look forward to. I think they're believing in Taylor Heineke. Again, this is a team that's had to face so much adversity. I forgot, I think it was Howie that said, the most interesting part of this game is the owner's box and seeing if the owners will actually talk after Jim Irsay's comments on Dan Snyder and if he should remain owner of this team with the allegations surrounding him. So all that to say, I think Washington getting this win was huge, huge confidence booster. I think it was huge for Taylor Heineke. If you saw after the win, he was showing so much pure emotion on that team. And the best confidence comes from within. And so the fact I think that Taylor Heineke has now beat, Aaron Rodgers, even though the Green Bay Packers are a much different team this year. And now you've went on the road and won in Indianapolis. I do think this is going to give Washington the confidence to at least think they can beat the Minnesota Vikings, which I think would be huge, especially if they were able to get a home win. So see, we are being positive. All right, Wayne, we are enjoying the W, but again, we do have to just point the positives and negatives out because we want this to continue.
One of the, thank you very much for your comments. One of the positives for me, I have two of them. One, Jamin Davis. I thought Jamin Davis played great today. 6 tackles, 5 solo tackles, and you can start to see the growth of Jamin Davis even from game 1 to where we at now. Jamin Davis to game 8. Jamin Davis has grown and started to fulfill that position at inside linebacker. So I think that's a positive there. Other positive I have is Joey Slye. Joey Slye was perfect today. I'm sorry. Joey Slye was perfect today. And I don't know about you, but how many Washington fans were holding their breath when it came to the extra point to take the lead, right? Because Joey Slye has missed a couple this year, but so that was huge for me. I think that was a great positive. Joey Slye was 100%, and they trusted him to kick the ball. The negative that I do take away once again is the secondary. The secondary still getting cooked. You have a Kirk Cousins coming to town with this Minnesota Viking team who's been putting up a lot of points. And Kirk Cousins has been putting up a lot of numbers. I just wish this game was on Monday night because we know Kirk Cousins doesn't do well on Monday night. I just was a primetime game. But now this Washington Commanders team has a 3-game winning streak going as Minnesota comes into town. And so, again, enjoy the W. Tomorrow's Victory Monday for this Washington Commanders team. They go back to work. And so we appreciate each one of y'all for joining us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Kelsey, let everyone know where they can hit you up, where they can find your great work that you're doing for Fox Sports 1340 AM and Fox Sports 1340 AM and 96.9 FM, and all the things that you're doing for other organizations as well. So how can I find you and keep up with Kelsey Nelson?
Thank you so much. And Glenn, I loved your positives because you know what? Just really quickly want to say, Joey Slye is being praised on the other end. Carolina Panthers feel a different way about their kicker after today's game. So please, everyone, show Joey some love. Could have been a completely different game, but everyone can follow me on social media, The Real K Nelson, my website, KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Have a bunch coming up covering NBA and NFL, one of my favorite times of the year. So please check me out. And also on Facebook, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. So looking forward to it and catch me weekly on 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore. Talking the latest in the NBA. Thanks, Glenn. And also check out my show, Listen In with Kanan, right here on Fox Sports 1340 AM and 96.9 FM. Appreciate y'all having me on.
No problem. We love having you on. You bring a nice touch to all Burgundy and Gold, everything. Always need a lady's touch every once in a while. George, where can we follow you and keep up with you, George?
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at TempTheRat. Rams Rewind. Season's getting ready. We just had our exhibition game last night. Monday, November 7th is our first game of the season. So I'll be doing podcasts after the games, either sometimes live right after the games or drop them in the morning. That's on Podbean and any of your other platforms. Also, infrequently, I do post on YouTube on Rodent Sports. And when I get back off of vacation and get back home to Florida, be expecting a World Cup prediction video, a huge World Cup prediction video coming up because the World Cup is not that far away. We're just about, I think it's 3 weeks out from the United States' first game in the World Cup. So that's what I'm up to.
No problem. Here at All Burgundy and Gold and everything, make sure you subscribe to us on Podcast Spotter, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Podcasts. Just search All Burgundy and Gold, everything. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitter at ABG_everything. That's everything with 3 R's. On Instagram, Twitter, and make sure you hit us up on Facebook at All Burgundy Gold and everything. Once again, Mo, Ray, and Wole were out today. I appreciate George Templeton and Kelsey Nicole Nelson for joining us. Washington got a win, 17-16 over the Indianapolis Colts. Tomorrow's Victory Monday. People are celebrating, dancing in the streets of Washington right now, waiting for them to come back home, and they're still drinking that Heineke juice. Make sure you don't drink too much of that as of yet, because he still has work to do. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here on All Burgundy and Gold, everything post-game report. I'm Glen Thomas. You guys have a great night, and we talk to you later.
Bye. Bye, guys.